All right, we're rolling. How's it look? All right? Is it good? All right. Well, my name is Nolan Dalla. I need my glasses. Can you bring my glasses? Because I'm going to read something, and I've already forgotten one thing. I'm on camera here. I think I left them in the house. Anyway, my name is Nolan Dalla. I'm with you here on Friday evening. It's about 7 o'clock at night here in Las Vegas. 7 o'clock, 75 degrees, just a perfect evening. In the backyard of my house here on the west side of Las Vegas. I live in the Lakes area, which is it's about 7 or 8 miles off the strip. I'll take those glasses. Thank you very much. And today we're going to talk, well, we'll get to today's topic in just a minute. The reason that I'm here doing this, what we call a vlog, which is a video log. It used to be a blog, I think. That's when you write. And I've been writing a blog. I don't like the word blog. It's just blah. It doesn't seem weighty enough. I like to call them essays. It sounds a little more sophisticated and upscale. And anyway, my essays have appeared daily, almost daily, at nolandalla.com. I was inspired by a lot of things to start writing about topics, not just about poker, but about things that happen in our life, politics, philosophy, movies. Not always good things, either bad things, things that are challenging to us. The ups and downs of life. I think that's what my blog, there's my bad word again, my blog tries to capture, is the things that have gone on in my life, and in many cases a lot of my friends' lives, that have affected me, that I've learned from, that I've been inspired by. And it's really not as easy to do this, say, in front of a camera, just continuing to roll. I really enjoy writing. I think writing is it's a cathartic process, because it makes you research and reach. It makes you reach within, and makes you it solidifies your positions, your philosophy. And sometimes, many times, I found myself wrong or straying from what would be called a logical position. And through feedback, through discussions that I've had after writing, I've diverted my position, or realigned my position in accordance with a more logical or rational argument. So I always tell people when I'm writing, and now as I'm speaking, I never presume. I never presume to have all the answers. I've got a few of them. I've got a lot of answers, I think, or I'm close to getting to. But I would never presume to tell anyone that I know everything about anything. Even fields that I have been intimately involved with for years, I still consistently learn things daily, because I think once you no longer learn or open yourself to the possibility of absorbing new things, I think you're dead. And so I try to, like I said, learn and capture from all the things that I come across. And I guess if I have one thing that I think is maybe somewhat appealing to people, if that's the right word, it's that I do have a lot of interest. I am interested in a lot of subjects. Certainly living in Las Vegas, gaming, gambling, poker, the casino business, the Las Vegas, that a lot of people know, that has been my life for the better part of 12 years, which is how long I've lived here. Prior to living in Las Vegas, I lived in Washington, D.C. for 12 years, and these two cities, in terms of the United States, are about as different as anyone could possibly imagine as to what they stand for, what kinds of people live in them, what daily life is in each of them. And so they're really bookends and opposites in many ways. And I think coming from Washington, D.C., and before that in Europe, being exposed to a lot of different places and people it's certainly given me a greater sense of perspective. But now that I live in Las Vegas, I look back upon that, and I am eager to share with you my ideas, not only about this city and this industry that I work in, but maybe some of the things that I've seen and done, and certainly the political beliefs and philosophical leanings that I have about a lot of things. And some people may not find that really appealing, but I'm if you read what I do, you know where I'm coming from. And a lot of people don't always agree, but I think if it gets people thinking or talking, I think that's a good thing. And by the way, cheers to video blog or vlog number 1. Thank you for joining me. there's an old saying, and I'm going to challenge this right now, this assumption that let's don't talk about politics, let's don't talk about religion, let's don't talk about anything controversial. These are topics that, unfortunately, in this society tend to divide people, and that's probably true. We are a very divided society, certainly politically, probably in terms of faith, or spirituality, in terms of philosophy, in terms of geography, north versus south, in terms of race, in terms of age, old versus young. I mean, this 1960s were known as an era of great change, but I don't think even the 1960s, which was a very tumultuous time in this country's history, I don't think we've ever seen the divisions that exist in this society as much as we see them today. And I think that's very unfortunate. And I believe a lot of that stems not from too much communication. I think it stems from too little communication. I'm going to say that again. I think it stems from too little communication and too little interaction. I say that we need more political discussion. We need more debate. We need more introspection. We need to test ourselves consistently, because I think only through this process does one, first of all, grow, learn, challenge the presumptions that you have, and hopefully evolve to closer towards the truth. And again, my process of going through this experience with you is very much dedicated towards that. So getting to, I guess, to the topic of the day, if you will, I will try to talk about at least one primary topic each day. We'll see how that goes and what the feedback is. But one of the things that I just got back, speaking of Washington, I just got back from Washington, D.C., and one of the great institutions of that fine city is the Washington Post. Katie Graham's, the late great Katie Graham's newspaper, Bren Bradley. I grew up in that era when journalism really meant something, and writers were really the observers and in some ways the lighthouses of the country. I think the better part of the late 19th century up until, say, World War II, when television essentially took over as the most powerful medium in the country, print journalism and newspapers, although hardly unbiased and hardly without scandal on occasion, print journalism was truly it was the lighthouse of society, and I think it still must be. I mean, media gets criticized a great deal. Certainly, we've become extremely saturated with social media, but there still must be what I call institutions where we go to get news, to get truth, to get really the inside scoop, and whether it's PBS or whether it's the Chicago Tribune or the LA Times or the Wall Street Journal or the Dallas Morning News or whatever newspaper or local newscast or whatever you read, everyone, I think, must go to some place where they can at least get some snippet of what happened today that's not biased. And of course, unfortunately, getting back to the division, that's a problem in society. Even the news is divided. Even the news is something that we watch. I'm, by the way, guilty of this as well. There's a conservative news channel now, which is Fox News. There's a liberal news channel, which is MSNBC. And of course, a lot of the media is accused of being liberal. I'll get to that another time. So, I would say that, again, we need to go to the media, and because I can't be everywhere. You can't be everywhere. You can't go into a factory and see what it's like, or the mistreatment of foreigners that come here, immigrants. And speak. We can't know all that goes on in the world and all the wrongs and the need for justice unless there's someone with a spotlight shining into a dark corner and showing us what's going on there. And really, for the most part, that's the media. And unfortunately, the media is becoming smaller. It's again, not what it once was. And also, the media interests in this country are largely controlled by larger powers that be, including corporations. And they now themselves, in many cases, have to produce a profit. And that certainly warps the sense of Well, the sense of being impartial, I think, is now compromised when the top priority of a news division is to create a profit. And nothing wrong with making money, and I understand you got to pay the bills and the light's got to stay on, somehow. But when profit becomes the top priority of a news division or of a newspaper or a television station, I think that that you should just take that for what it's worth, and that's essentially what's happened to a large extent in a lot of America's greatest cities. So as I said, I'm going to talk about politics today, and specifically one thing that I think really is troubling to me and should be very, very troubling to you as well. A lot of people probably are aware of my history, experience with Sheldon Adelson and the Las Vegas Sands Corporation. I don't presume or pretend to be unbiased on this issue. Mr. Adelson has come out against the legalization of online poker and online gambling in the United States, to the point where he's now the #1 really force, or I say obstacle, to a very rational, responsible 21st century application of public policy towards this issue. And unfortunately, Sheldon Adelson is, reminds me of the horse and buggy days when they're protesting the automobile or something like that. I mean, this is the internet, online behavior, all of these things. This is the 21st century, and it's remarkable to me that there's even a debate. I mean, people shop online, they communicate online, they get their news online, people have relationships online, people buy cars online, their social networks are online, people are involved in Twitter, Facebook. Everything is through that lens, in a sense, that you're looking through today. That is the communication network of the universe. Governments have fallen because of what's happening online, whether it was Egypt or some of the scenes we've seen around the world. I mean, nothing can stay secret any longer. And why is that? It's not so much because of the Washington Post, which I talked about earlier. It's because you're out there with a smartphone, and there's billions of smartphones that are floating around the world that capture every single thing that goes on. And that kind of knowledge, that kind of rich, encyclopedia of history cannot be, you can't put the genie back in the bottle or the toothpaste back in the tube. I mean, essentially the internet is here to stay. And so the position that I and most of the people that are in favor of online poker and online gambling to a larger extent, we just recognize that this is a behavior, just another behavior of people interacting on the internet. They're going to shop, they're going to communicate, they're going to play games, and they're going to gamble or play poker on the internet. And unfortunately, Sheldon Adelson is again the biggest obstacle to that. And the biggest irony, or the greatest irony to this, is if this was coming from a moralist, someone that was religious based, I certainly don't agree with that. But you could at least acknowledge there's a certain amount of consistency there. If a preacher or a religious figure is opposed categorically to all forms of gambling and comes out and says, you know what, I'm against this bill because, I'm against the bill to legalize online poker at the federal level. I'm against this because I think all gambling is immoral. It's unethical. It's wrong. I don't agree with that, but you can admire the consistency of that individual. He's consistent in his behavior, doesn't like this, that, and so forth, fine. But Sheldon Adelson has a bit of a different background, shall we say. In fact, he's, I don't know where he ranks in terms of the biggest casinos in the world, but according to Forbes magazine, he's the 14th richest man in the entire world. He's built that empire almost exclusively due to one thing. That, ladies and gentlemen, is gambling. And that's because he is the CEO and the largest majority shareholder in the Las Vegas Sands Corporation. That, by the way, is it owns the Venetian. That's the casino that's right there at Spring Mountain and the Las Vegas Strip. And the most remarkable thing of all, when you come to Las Vegas and you see the Venetian, which, by the way, is a beautiful hotel. It's a magnificent place, a lot of good shows, a wonderful poker room, excellent staff. I mean, I really have no objections to the Venetian. It's a really very nice property. However, when one comes by the Venetian and they look at the immensity of this hotel, I think it's the second largest hotel in the entire world in terms of rooms. The MGM Grand is number one. I believe the Venetian is second largest. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong on that. But as you come by this, you think, my goodness, look at all the wealth that this building, the Venetian, must be producing for Sheldon Adelson and his stockholders. And when you as it turns out, this is but a small, very, very small fraction of the money that's accrued by the Las Vegas Sands Corporation. Most of the money comes from China, from Macau specifically. Macau, a small island off the coast of mainland China, where Sheldon Adelson and the Las Vegas Sands have a very, very, very successful and lucrative casino, and what I call which turned them into essentially an empire, has made him, again, one of the richest men in the entire world. And it's a remarkable thing that, if you look at Macau, Macau is now what Las Vegas used to be to, say, North America or to the world. Macau is to Asia. And if you consider what the immensity of the populations and all of the wealth that's concentrated in Asia, there's really only a few places that one can legally gamble, and one of those is Macau. And so Sheldon Adelson and his company have done very, very well indeed, which is very puzzling to me that he's earned so much wealth, but now spends so much of his attention, energy, and money on this fight to stop online poker and online gambling. And I'll extend that to something that's really a larger question and what I view as a larger problem. Sheldon Adelson's history within political activism dates back many, many years. Most notably, in terms of what we know, in 2012, he backed Newt Gingrich. Now, Newt Gingrich was the former Speaker of the House from Georgia, a congressman from the state of Georgia, who took over as House Majority House Speaker in 1994 when the Republicans won control of the Congress for the first time in quite a long time. And so Newt Gingrich runs for president in 2012. A very, very controversial, divisive figure, I think would be understating it. A man who's got certainly some moral flaws, and that didn't seem to matter to a lot of Republicans. But he got most of his money from Sheldon Adelson in 2012. In fact, I think the estimates are between $30 and $35 million went from Sheldon Adelson to the coffers of Newt Gingrich. And what did this produce? What did all of this money going from the Sands Corporation and Mr. Adelson to Newt Gingrich, what did that produce? Well, not very much. And that actually was surprising to a lot of people, because Newt Gingrich, one thing you'll give him credit for, is a very, very smart man. I mean, flawed, certainly, and a lot of baggage, but a former professor of history, a man that could talk about almost any subject without notes exhaustively and with some authority. I actually have a great reverence for Newt Gingrich when I've heard him talk about the Civil War and some other things where he is, truly an authority. But Sheldon Adelson backed him, and Newt Gingrich, I think, finished a distant second, if not third, in the Republican primaries. And unfazed by any of this, Sheldon Adelson decided, you know what, now I'm going to back Mitt Romney, because he's now the Republican nominee in 2012, chosen in the Tampa convention, and he plows another $30 or $40 million. I think the total figure, according to the Washington Post, $92 million was spent by Sheldon Adelson and his wife to support Republican candidates in the 2012 election, just shy of $100 million. Now, what did that produce? Nothing. In fact, in my view, my political analysis is that a lot of people, whatever ad buys they were able to get from that, whatever pollsters they could hire, whatever political influence all of that tidal wave of money created, it created an equally large, if not larger, backlash. There's a lot of people like me, and they're not just socialists like I am. These are middle-of-the-road people who may have been leaning that direction, but when they hear of that kind of money interest coming in and essentially trying to strangle the democratic process and really do away with the concept of one man, one vote. That's an old term. It's one person, one vote. Where one person, which is Sheldon Adelson, has an immense amount of power, immense amount of control over the entire process. There's a lot of people like not just myself, but out there across the spectrum, all the way from the Rand Pauls to the Bernie Sanders, all the way from conservative to liberal, who really resent the oligarchy that's become the American political process. Now, today is Friday. Tomorrow morning, Sheldon Adelson is going to hold court. I'm not making this up. It's right here. You can read it in the paper. You can go it online. Sheldon Adelson is holding court at the Venetian, and several prospective 2016 Republican candidates will be going to the Venetian to kiss the golden ring of Mr. Adelson, begging for his financial support, because they know if he spent $92 million in 2012, I'm seeing at least three figures here. I mean, how many figures is that? 9 figures? What's $100 million? That's 9 figures, right? He's going to spend 9 figures or higher probably on this election. The man's 80 years old. He has a bottomless well of financial resources. He's going to put everything he can into this race. And so the gist of this article is that Mr. Adelson doesn't want to pick a loser this time. He's decided that he's going to back, hopefully, a winning candidate, an electable Republican. So all of these Republicans are groveling at his feet. They're lining up. By the way, they're all here in Las Vegas now. They've come to Las Vegas. They've flown in today. They're at the Venetian or in the surrounding area, and they will be going to Mr. Adelson's office, his suite, at the Venetian. Here's some names that will be there, ladies and gentlemen. Listen to this. Sitting New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. It's just shameful. There's nothing going on in New Jersey right now that would need his attention. He flies across the country to kiss the feet of Mr. Adelson. Former Florida Governor Jeb Bush. He would like nothing better than to have the support of Mr. Adelson. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker. Ohio Governor John Kasich. I mean, all these people are lining up, hoping that Sheldon Adelson will give him his blessing. More importantly, will give him his money. And open up that checkbook and just keep writing until the pen runs out of ink. Now, the only candidate in the Republican field, the prospective Republican field, that's not here, interestingly enough, is Rand Paul. Now, Rand Paul is the son of Ron Paul, the libertarian-leaning Republican who ran, I think, unsuccessfully the last 2 times in the Republican primaries. Rand Paul has been discussed as essentially being the libertarian-leaning candidate who will run in 2016. Very divisive, interesting figure. But one thing I'll say about Rand Paul, he knows he has no shot at getting any of Adelson's money, so he doesn't even bother to show up. You have to, why bother? The man is, as a libertarian, he's probably going to be. I haven't seen his position on this, but I'm assuming that as a libertarian, he has to be for things like online poker and online gambling, which Adelson isn't. He is not, meaning Senator Rand Paul is not in favor of foreign engagement or entanglement or colonialism or intervention. Those are all buzzwords, basically for American exceptionalism overseas and imposing American democracy on in other areas of the world. These are in front of everything that Mr. Adelson stands for and believes in. So Rand Paul has no shot. He doesn't bother to show up. But these other people, they are willing to compromise and do anything they can to get the bucks. And that's the way it is in politics. I remember a fascinating anecdote, and I'll tell it now. It's not going to be told by me as well as the person who originally told it. There used to be a senator. His name was Paul Simon. He was a great senator, a Democratic senator from Illinois. I think he had Barack Obama's before Barack Obama was elected to the United States Senate in 2006, 2004. Somebody could look that up. I believe that was Paul Simon's seat, and it's not Paul Simon of Simon and Garfunkel, by the way. There's a Senator Paul Simon, so if you query that name, he's a fine senator, and he said something that I thought just really summed up. This really summed up the political process and really what a lot of things that are wrong with Washington and with democracy as we see it. Paul Simon was interviewed, and he was talking about what the average day is like in the life of a United States senator or a congressman. It's probably worse for congressmen, by the way, because Congress people have to run for re-election every 2 years. The United States senator runs for re-election every 6 years. So the senators can actually, when they're not running, they actually can govern. That's kind of nice, you know. Instead of running for re-election every 6 years and consistently campaigning and worrying about, you know, how your positions are affecting your re-electability, senators can actually govern for, you know, 2/3 of that. I don't know, 3 or 4 years. In other words, they don't have to consistently worry about the time clock winding down on their office. Congressmen, different situation. They're consistently running for re-election all the time because they come up every 2 years in the cycle, which I think is, by the way, a very. I would actually favor a constitutional amendment that would change that. I think people just. You've got to give people some time in office once they go through the trouble of going through the political process and being elected. This is probably not a popular position. But I think the problem is when people are consistently having to run and be reelected over and over again, it diverts their attention from the real problems of the country and the world, and it forces them to worry about electoral politics and campaigning, which are two entirely different talents. Being a great campaigner does not make you a great representative or a great senator or a great president, for that matter. These are completely different skill sets, and I'm afraid voters don't seem to grasp that. It's become a beauty contest or a popularity contest. Now I've just gone off on another tangent, but I was talking about Paul Simon, and he said just a marvelous quote, and I'm paraphrasing. He said, "Let me just tell you what an average day is like in the United States for a United States senator." He says, I go out and I campaign, and he's from Illinois, so he's going across the countryside and making a speech in Peoria and going down to here and there. And he goes around on a bus. Sometimes it'll be a plane that'll land, and he'll make 5 speeches and go up to the VFW and shake a few hands, do an interview here. And he's doing a 12, 13-hour day. And if he does that today, tomorrow he does the same thing. And then it'll be the same thing after that. The same questions, the same interview, over and over and over. And by the way, meanwhile, his Washington office is calling him, keeping him abreast on votes he needs to do. His family, whatever little family life he has, he may get a phone call on that too. So talk about juggling a lot of things going on. And Paul Simon said that, you know, what really is the toughest thing, he said, at the end of the day, at the end of that 12, 13, 14-hour day, I'll go check in. I'll be in, I'm thinking some city, and you know, he'll be in Peoria, Illinois, and he's checking into the Best Western or the Marriott or whatever it is, and it's 11:45. By the way, he's going to have an 8 a.m. breakfast with so and so, and he's going to give a speech. So he's got about 7-8 hours, maybe, for himself to get sleep and so forth. And he comes in his hotel room. And here comes a political campaign advisor or his chief of staff or someone, and they'll hand him a list. And it'll be a piece of paper, and it'll just be like this. And it'll have, this is typical, it'll have 20 names and 20 phone numbers on it. And it'll say, here's the ones you need, here's the people you need to call back in the morning, first thing in the morning. And by the way, every day, there's 20 names. I mean, sometimes it's 17 names, sometimes it's 26 names, sometimes on a slow day, it's 12 names. And Paul Simon said, you know what? Whenever I look at those 20 names, you know which ones I'm going to call back first? The ones that gave me money. The ones that wrote me a check. The ones that contributed to my political campaign. They get the first phone call. And if they wrote a big check, they get the earliest phone call. If you didn't write a check at all, you'd be lucky to get a call back, or maybe some junior staffer will call you. My point is this. Finally, my point is this, is that access and of having a voice is predicated upon one thing and one thing only, and that is M-O-N-E-Y, money. And the more of it you have, the bigger your voice. Now, this is not a new concept. This is not news to anyone. I think the real problem, and I'll wrap this up by saying this, the real problem is that we've become so used to it. We've become so accepting of it that it's become almost part of our political DNA. And we've lost, I think, our direction to a certain extent. That we allow this kind of thing to happen, where the person that contributes the most money, the person who is willing to write a check for $92 million to someone, that their voice not only gets heard, but as it should be heard, but heard where it basically drowns out all the other voices. Because Paul Simon is not going to call the other 19 people on that list. He's going to call the one or two or the three that gave him the money. And it's not Paul Simon. I'm not picking on Paul Simon. Paul Simon had the courage to tell the story and say, this is what everybody's daily life is like when you're running for re-election and when you're in Washington. And if anybody thinks that that's going to change without some major shakeup, it's worse now than it's ever been. It may get worse tomorrow. So in 2016, watch out. Newt Gingrich is there in the Venetian. If you're interested in running for president, I'm sure he'd love to talk to you and write you a big fat check. I don't think I'm going to go down there. I don't think I have a shot. So anyway, I've enjoyed speaking to you. This is my first, like I said, video vlog. Is that the right word? Next time, I don't know what I'll write. I'll speak about. Maybe it'll be about wine. Maybe it'll be about health. Maybe it'll be about music. Maybe it'll be a story. Whatever pops into my mind. There will be some rants occasionally. There will be some profanity occasionally. I'll try to keep that to a minimum, but certain things will sometimes upset me, and I will take no responsibility for my actions once you click the play button. So I want to thank you for joining me. This is Nolan Dalla in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'll see you next time.